Obviously you'll see on my channel I have done some changes, so change the logo, change the name. It was Exploring Angler with a little badge of EA in, a bit close to the wire. So before I got in trouble for having the EA logo, I changed it around, changed it for Angling with Stebbs. So my name's Tom, surname Stebbins, obviously my mates call me Stebbs, or Tomo. Yeah, so basically what I'm going to do today is run through what I take beach fishing, or what I use beach fishing. So beach shelter, tripod rods, rigs, what I put my rigs in. I'm literally going to go through the basics of tackle. I'll cover a bit of rods and reels and try and keep it interesting. I'm aware my voice is monotone and I go a lot, as my missus loves to point out when I do videos. So I've laid all my kit out, I've tidied the garage up. My missus is a bit of a tornado, so she'll tidy up the house, lob it all in the garage and then leave it. So I've come in, had a little tidy up, and I'll literally go through what I use and why I use it. So what I'm going to do is I am going to run through what I use from the very bottom of the rig, start with a lead. I'll go into rigs, what rigs I use, where I use them, why I use them and what I use them for. Then it'll be like location, so would I use what rig or what rock mark or what beach. I'll follow it up through with what main line I use, what shock leader I use, any little bits that I'd say to take, sort of head torches, maybe take one or two, any extras like Jetboils and stuff, and I'll literally go through bit by bit of what I take fishing and why I take it fishing. So at the beginning I've got leads, so I primarily use grippers. So I've got 4 ounce grips, 5 ounce grip, 6 ounce grip, 7 ounce grip, and I've got a couple of 8s as well. So grip wise is dependent on where you're fishing. So if you're somewhere tidal, say Bristol Channel, you're going to be using 5s maybe, probably primarily a 6, and if it's a big tide you're going to be using 7s. Again, it was the same when we went up tote fishing in Wales with GG last week. We was on 7 and 8s because the tide was absolutely ripping through. So you'll find you'll cast your lead out, the bait's quite a size, and it'll just rip out, it'll pull your lead out, the grippers won't hold. You can put elastic bands around the bottom of the grips just to keep them sort of locked in so they don't spring out and your lead roll off into a snag, etc. But again, it's worth thinking about. So if you're sat on a nice sandy beach with no tide, say B sands, 4 or 5 ounces, fine, absolutely fine. If you're off the rock marks along the south coast Hussing, you're probably going to want to use a 6 because your bait's going to be a bit bigger. You just need it to give it the momentum to get it out. So moving on to rigs. So obviously rigs are fish targetable. So you'd vary your rigs for what fish you target. So that is my tote rig. So that's a pair of 805 4/4 circle hooks from Sakuma on a 100-pound 7-strand mono-coated wire. In fairness to these, I would probably go away from the coated wire as suggested before, because as soon as that wire touches the tope's teeth, it just strips off that monofilament coating, which then effectively destroys your rig. When it costs you, what, £2 for a rig and you get 1 fish on it which trashes it, then it's probably worth considering getting non-coated wire. So if I move on to the other rigs I've got, so I've got pedal pulleys. So my pedals, I usually use a pair of 4-0s, usually mantas. So I normally roll with Sakuma hooks. They've never failed me, they've never snapped, they've never bent out. They just work, and I've had a nice fish on them. Rig wise, I'll keep the beads as small as I can, so I'll try and show there's a little black bead on there, and then I keep the swivels fairly small. I'll try and find, there you go, that's a better one. So if I put that there, you see the beads are small, the swivel's small, and then I use a little splashdown. I've started moving away from the splashdowns. I've got a lot of rigs with them on still, but they do unclip. So I've had them unclip in the air, I've had it where I've cast them out and they haven't unclipped. So I'm starting to move away from them and go into the Geminis now, or the Trident tackle ones. In terms of rigs, so panel pulleys I use for rays. I use them for smooth hounds. I tend to take one off for a smooth hound and just have 1 4-0. Yeah, and I use them pretty much anywhere, to be honest. I use them off the rocks, I use them up the channel. Everywhere I go, I'll probably have a panel out. Obviously the tote rigs I use for Huss and tope only, so they tend to just go off the rough ground marks with big baits. And then I keep them all in these. So I used to use these, so I've got one out ready. So that'll hold loads of rigs. 60, maybe 80 rigs on winders in there. However, a few of them in your box takes up a lot of room, and you never use that many rigs when you go out. So I've switched up to these. What I do is I've got 3 for each type of fishing, and then I'll just take one. So Bristol Channel, beach, etc. And it's marked up for where I'd go. So that's my pedals. So you can go back in the box. So the next one, I have got flatty rigs and pop-ups. So I've got 1-ups, just 1 up, 1 down, loads of little beads on there. So I tend to use these for the place fishing. They clip up, so one hook will clip down, the other will clip up onto a cascade swivel. Your lead comes off. When they hit the bottom, obviously, all springs apart. Your ragworm sits low on the water. In terms of pop-up, I think this is courtesy of Shay Up on this one. Old rig, I've obviously changed hooks and stuff on it. So that is a 1 hook pat. So the weight goes onto the little clip at the bottom. I don't bother clipping it down. Put a little bit of mackerel on there and it pops it up in the water. Works really well for mackerel in the summer. You'll find 1 mackerel fights a lot better than a string of 6. So when you get a lot of the guys feathering, there's no real sport in it. It's just a case of hauling mackerel out. But 1 definitely gives a good fight. And there's another variety there, which is more of a running ledger. So you literally just put the lead on and then slide it up and down your trace line. Again, good for bigger mackerel. So if you want your specimen mackerel, your 1/8s, 1/4s, 2-pounders, pop-ups generally work really well. Either that or a spinning rod with a Dexter wedge. Again, works really well. So this one's my sole rigs and bream. So my bream rigs are boomed. You see them there. It's a nice little size 1. I think they're chinos or stingers. Not entirely, I can't remember really. But then again, it's wire boom. So that's quite a long rig. So you'd use that on deeper water marks. So I've used them on Chesil. And it did work. So next I've got sole rigs. So my snoods are all weighted. You see the little ball weight there on the top. So I've got a little ball weight where you clip your rig into your main line just to make it sit flat. Then I've got ball weights on the snoods as well. So I'll try and find a way to get a better view. If I can. Hold on a sec, because I've got loads of these little suckers. As you can see, I've got rigs coming out of everywhere. There you go. So if you see them in there, you see all the little balls. So each snood is probably so long with 1 ball weight. And it absolutely nails it to the seabed with a nice small size 1 hook. And that literally keep it on the bottom flat for sole. The 1 up, 1 down I use for everything. So you'll have place on that, red mullet on that, gurnards on it, smaller smooth hounds, small rays, anything small. If you want the species, the 2 hook flappers, the 1 up, 1 down, they work quite well species hunting. So I used to do the Tronics species hunt years ago. And that'd be sort of my go-to rig. So I'd find a nice sandy beach where you can catch a variety of fish, bream, literally anything will fall to a decent 2 hook flapper with some light line on. So that's my go-to rig for species. And then if you want the bigger fish, it's your pennel with a bigger bait. So when I go out, obviously you get plagued by dogfish. So dogfish ruin your rigs. They'll swallow, they'll get gut hooked, they'll do whatever. So all I've got here is literally rig bits. So loads of hooks, spare beads. I've got some weak line for rotten bottoming, just in case you're on a rough ground mark. Shit. Little knot puller, so if you're tying hooks back on, you don't slip and slice your fingers. Sometimes you pull the line tight, slice fingers, so I've got a little knot puller in there. And then obviously I've got spare swivels, etc. Anything you need really to make rigs or replace and fix rigs. All comes in this little bag. Just making a mess now. So again, I'll take that. That goes in my box. As you can see, I've got drawers and drawers full of fishing stuff. Cool. So moving on to the other rigs. So this is my bigger rig wallet. It's not as tidy as the others. So again, it's got pop-ups in, bit of power gum, and then it's full of Bagnall bars. So I've got one just sat on top here. There you go. So main line clips in. There's your snood line, and then your hook would go on the end there with whatever you want to put on with your cascade swivel. Your cascade swivel then clips into the swivel at the top. I'll try and make this a bit clearer for you, like so. Then you depress it down like that, and your power gum holds it in place. It needs a longer snood because I've obviously lost the hook on that, and it clips into here. So when you fire it out, you're literally just got 1 solid bar to fire it out. Again, that's good for place, sole, anything sort of bottom dwelling. You can put bigger hooks on it, you can make it into a panel, you can do what you want with it really. And turn it into like a weighin rig, or whatever really. So it's again another versatile rig. It's not much different from say a one down rig where the bar goes out. You can weight up the snood and keep it nailed to the bottom. You can fish whatever you want with it really. Cool. So in terms of line, at the minute I'm on Tronics Pro Blaze 20 pound 0.3. Brilliant line. I used to use the Ultima F1 and I've had instances where it's melted on the spool when it's had a cast. I've had nothing but dramas with the Ultima F1, especially in grey. It hasn't done well for me at all. The yellow one, not so bad, but now on this Tronics Pro Blaze. So this is what I had my 33 pound 10 tope on the other week. It's fantastic line. It's really stretchy. It just does the business really. And it just shows that 20 pound line can catch a fish that's bigger than 20 pound. So definitely worth considering. Shock leader. So I've got 60 pound, 70 pound and an 80 in Ultima Powerflex. So my rig's generally a 60. I only really use 6 ounce lead. Sometimes I use a 7, but 6 pound is strong enough to take a 7 ounce lead. The rule of thumb is you're supposed to have 10 pound for every ounce, but I break the rules. They're there to be bent. So there you go. Cool. So that leads us on to other bits that I would take. So scissors are a must. IKEA scissors, brilliant. If your missus ever goes IKEA, they all go IKEA. So you must do. Grab a couple of pairs of them. I think they're about £1 and they last forever. Scales. So I've got a pair of Reuben Heaton sport scales. Again, fairly cheap. I think they're about 20-30 quid. Got a pair of backup scales there. Got a pair of Savage gears. I only usually take the one pair because somebody I'll go with will have a set of scales, but definitely want to have in your box. You don't want to catch that fish for a lifetime and not have any scales to weigh it, because that is the worst thing you could possibly think of. Bait elastic, I use Tronics Pro Baitex. Again, I don't like, it's good elastic, don't get me wrong, but I don't like how it flips back inside the tube. When you've got fishy fingers and your elastic buggers off in there, there's nothing worse than unscrewing that lid and blowing it back out and tasting it. So I think it's Akios and Nova do one in a little green tub. So Gaff, Griffiths had it, Will had it. I'd probably recommend that over this, if I'm honest. Nothing wrong with the elastic inside. You can just take it out of the tube if you want, but I kind of like it so it doesn't rot away. Sometimes you get elastics. Sure, I've probably got one that's a bit molten. Yeah, so if you don't keep it in the tube, it tends to go brown and mouldy. And it gets a bit weaker, so not so great. Other little bits to take from a box. Jetboil, that little bad boy. So inside there's a cooker and a lighter. Gas goes on the bottom there with the cooker. That'll boil your water in a minute. No word of a lie. 70 seconds, 90 seconds, you'll have a pint of boiling water for a coffee or a pot noodle. So we took that out last week. We had 4 or 5 pot noodles, still loads of gas left. Perfect. This is like a little nighttime light. It's deceptively bright. Stop it flashing. No. I've got no battery, that's why. I haven't charged the outlet. So in the back, obviously, it's just got a little USB charging port in there. Needs charging up. However, very bright. So if you're out on the rocks and you're doing something, generally I use it for the GoPro and stuff, but it's definitely worth having. Just be aware that it'll attract every moth within a mile because they think it's the flipping moon. So they will come from every direction. So, moving on. Torches. So I used to have a lead lens XO19R, which was brilliant. Really bright, lasted hours and hours and hours. But the weight of the battery pack on the back of your head, so it used to sit there, would stretch the elastic around the sides quite a lot. After, I think I had it about 6-7 years, so it lasted. It didn't break, to be fair. I think I sold it off in the end for quite cheap, but wasn't very comfortable. You do a big cast and you can feel the lead flopping around on the back of the head. If you're looking down at your reel, you can feel it flopping around on the back of your head. So I've gone with Shadow Master, and then the newer version, I think this is like 2.0 or something. This is my main headlight, this is my backup. Battery dies in this while you're out, then you've got another little battery on to see you through. They're both quite bright. This one's obviously a lot brighter than the Shadow Master, but definitely worth considering having two. They're tiny, they don't weigh much, literally weigh nothing at all. Definitely worth having two. You don't want to be walking home by phone light. We've all done it at some point, or we packed up by phone light, not very fun at all. So I would consider having 2 head torches, 100%. Cool, so boots. So if I'm on a beach, I wear waders. So I've got a pair of Vast waders. I'll just grab them. If I can. Yeah, cool. So nice sandy beach, get yourself a pair of waders. See the Vast Tech 700E, welly boots on the bottom there. They're good. And they help if you want to wade out. So if you're on the likes of a tidal beach, so if you're down here, you'll know the likes of East Portsmouth, you fish at low tide, you want to get some depth, you want to get in the channel, waders are the way to go. Same with Chesil, if you want to get down, get on the shingle, you might want to take waders, you might not, depends how comfortable you want to be. Channel, certain marks, I'll always wear waders. Just depends on the walk, because if you get a nice sunny day like we have been having, and you're walking in waders, life is very unpleasant. Boots wise, so these are a pair of jungle boots, they're about 30 quid. Obviously when I was in the army I used to wear things like these. So they're at the sides, it's sort of woven material, keeps your feet nice and cool. They're nice and light, and the tread on them for rock mark fishing is brilliant. You see it on there. I have got a pair of bigger boots, they're called ham wags. And I usually wear them through the winter if it's cold, or I'm getting wet, so they're not waterproof, but the ham wags are. Brilliant boots, about 180 quid. And they take everything, absolute pasting. I can wade in up to my probably ankles without getting wet feet on those. So yeah, pretty good. Right, so that pretty much covers the terminal side of it and what I take. So I'll move on to reels and rods. And go from there and go through the other little bits really. So in the first clip, obviously I went through terminal tackle and some little bits that I'll take with me. I did miss a few bits out. So this obviously is a float. Float fishing's good for pollock, wrasse, bass, mackerel, garfish, whatever you want to catch on a float. It's worth doing, especially off a rock mark. You can just flick it out and just leave it bobbing around. Essentially, you can get some good fish on a float. So I do tend to take one small Tronics one there. Normally comes with like a little 1 ounce weight, and I'll just flick it out, let it dabble around my feet. If the rules of whatever I'm fishing, if I'm fishing a comp, they tend to have rules two rods only, 4 hooks. Pennels sometimes count as 2 hooks, sometimes they count as one because on the same rig. So obviously you have to fish within the confines of that. So I do take a float. Towel. There's nothing worse than baiting up and not having a towel to wipe your hands with, or if you fish the likes of Chesil and you get nothing but bootlace eels, obviously you know as well as I do, they trash your rig and they're slimy as hell. Mullet aren't the greatest either. Not that I can ever catch them, but I still have a go. So definitely take a towel. Waterproof coat. So I've got a Berghaus Storm. I think it's a Berghaus Storm 2 off the top of my head. Super lightweight, folds up really small. You can roll it up in the hood and you can be out in torrential rain and stay bone dry underneath. The longest I've ever done in that was 15 hours in the rain. I was raying, and all I had was a little V down there where my beard ran into the coat and dripped down. So again, well worth taking. Another IKEA special. You need to get your missus to go IKEA. Get yourself them scissors, and then this bag is big enough for a ray. The shape of it folds out pretty big. Get a nice size fish in there, nice smooth hound, nice huss, whatever you want to weigh. That is a good bag for it. Either that or get yourself a Rapala sling. Some people aren't bothered about fish care, but I like catching them, and I want to catch them when they're a bit bigger. So I want them to survive the process of being caught. So I weigh them in a bag and then I release. And I'm always catch and release unless it's something that I'm going to eat, like a mackerel. And I'll probably only take about 4. So yeah, nice bag for weighing. Gaff. If you ever fish eels, big huss, rock fishing, get yourself a gaff. Saves you going all the way to the water's edge, especially if there's a bit of a lump on. Last thing you want to do is be down there trying to lift the fish out manually by the snood, especially if it drops off the snood. Definitely don't want to have that. Beach shelter. Again, just got a little Shakespeare beach shelter. You're fishing the likes of, I don't know, whatever beach locally to you. So down here it'd be B-Sands, Chesil. I'll have a beach shelter. Even if the weather's a slight breeze, they're so much warmer inside. It's quite nice. Get your box in there, get your brew on, have your food. You can just sit in there and chill out. Cool, so that does cover everything I take. Obviously I don't take it all every time because that's quite a lot of weight to carry. So I try and keep my box to a minimum, and if I'm on the rocks, I've got a nice bag. Reels wise, so I've got the Tronix Pro £20 .30 with the Power Flex on there. So I've got £70 shock leader on these. My rig bodies are normally 60. I put 70 on the shock leader because that takes the brunt. So if you're scraping it along rocks or whatever. So I've got Dio Saltist 30 and the Dio Saltist 20. Got a pair of each. Both fantastic reels. Brilliant. I prefer the 30s because my thumb's quite big. So when you put your thumb on the spool, I like having a little bit either side on that. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant reels. Probably the best reels on the market. I've had the Fathom casting specials, I've had the Mag 4s, I've had the Pen Mag 525 Mag 3s and Pen 525 Mag 2s. And I didn't really get on with any of them other than the 2s. And the 2s are renowned for being terrible, but I quite like those. So that's what I go with now. And they are definitely the reels to have, 100%. If anybody else will recommend a reel, these would be the ones I'd go to. A lot of people use the Saltigas. Again, it comes down to a cost sort of thing. I mean, they're like 200 quid new. They don't come magged, but the likes of Phil Stairs and stuff will mag them. But they're bloody brilliant. They are so smooth. I don't take the mags off, don't have to. They are brilliant. You can whack them and they just fly. Absolutely fantastic reels. So this is my lure reel. Again, it'd be my float fishing reel as well. At the minute it's got braid on. I am going to change that over. I'm going to go braid, but I'm going to go a bit lighter. So at the minute it's got £20. I'm going to drop that to 12. So predominantly I'll just use that with my little rod. So if I'm float fishing, etc., I'll chuck that on. So moving on. Box. So seat box. Take beach fishing. I've got an army medic bag. I wasn't a medic. I was an engineer, but you can see the space in there takes everything. There's pockets for the lot, so you can have your water and drink in the side, you can have all your gear in there, you can have all your terminal tackle in there. There's another pack at the back. It's brilliant. Doesn't weigh much, as you can see on the back there. Nice and padded, keeps you nice and cool, you don't sweat too much. Got that 40 quid, I think it was, 45 quid. Have a look on Facebook Marketplace or eBay. Ex-squaddies sell stuff all day long. A nice army bag is well worth having. It takes the punishment of rocks. It's comfortable, brilliant. They do an NI one. It's Northern Ireland, so that's like a central bag with 2 pouches on the side and a pouch on top. Again, they're really good, but you're looking at about 80, 90 quid for one of them, second hand. But they're good bags. Will's got the other version. He's got the NI, and I've got the Medic. So mackerel fishing, wrasse fishing. I just use a Pen Rampage bass rod, old as hell. Got it from Trago Mills, 29 quid. 3-piece, light, tiny, absolute bottle. Takes all the punishment in the world, all the eyes are bent on it, it's got mackerel scales all over it. But it fires a 3-ounce lead out with a string of feathers, it chucks a float out, it does whatever I need it to do. It is due an upgrade soon, so I might have a look at that. But if you're looking for one, Pen Rampage, they do a new one now, Pen Rampage 2. It's worth looking at. Cheap and cheerful, but as they say, the fish doesn't know what you've got on the end. So moving on, I have got the Supermatch Ian Golds. These are crap. As you can see, just try and get them on an angle. These are terrible. So your rod will slip and slide all over them, and it'll leave cuff marks all over your rod. If you've got rods that you're bothered about, really annoying. The cups, again, you can see those down here. Too big for most rod butts, so your rod will flip all over the place. Again, really annoying. I am currently looking at getting some replacement cups, so I'm going to try and get the ones from Veals, and then I want to go with 3, so I can have one rod just sat there and then the other 2 fishing, so I can have one rod ready to go just with whatever rig on, the trace hanging below, and then when I have a doggy or whatever or one of the others and I have to reel it in, I can just whack the other one out, still in the confines if you're doing a league weekend or whatever. But I want 3 rods and I want better cups and things because pisses me off, if I'm honest. But other than that, the tripod itself's lightweight, doesn't rust, so the tripod is okay. It's just the cups, but the cups are 7 quid, so it's neither here nor there when you spend 30 quid on your tripod. So channel, Chesil, etc. Tip Tornado Sport, brilliant rod, fires out 6, 7, 8 ounce leads. So that was doing toping a mackerel bait, whole mackerel with a head and tail off, and an 8 ounce lead, absolutely no sweat. thought it was going to suffer. We thought we were going to get bitten. Sort of struggle with the tide bend on the rod, so obviously sometimes they arc round, but it was brilliant. Can't fault it at all. It's probably the best Century rod I've ever had, and I've had a lot of them. Yeah, so I've had T1000s, I've had Compressor SS, Compressor S, Tip Tornado Super Matches, but that one by far is the most versatile. For my light work, I've got T800s. See it there, Century T800. Again, fantastic light beach rod. Again, you don't have to use these sort of rods. They're a lot of money, but it's worth thinking about what rod you use and where. So you wouldn't use your sport racing, for example. You might as well use a little bendy rod and have a bit of fun with them. You know, they dive around, they give a good scrap. You might as well enjoy that rather than having something that's super overpowered and kind of sucks the fun out of it. If you get a £5 wrasse or a £4 wrasse, you don't want your sport just to be like, poof. It's fun when you have a good little play of them. However, the sport is brilliant when you get a £6, £7, £10 smooth hound or a ray on it. It holds its own. It is a brilliant rod with quite a sensitive tip. In terms of rods, that's pretty much all I use beach wise. That's pretty much everything I use, to be honest. It's just a case of where I use it and what I use for each individual mark. I'll show you a little clip at the end how I carry it all to the beach, because I strap it all together to keep it nice and easy so you're not flapping around with your rods dropping on the floor and your tripod legs falling apart and stuff like that. If you guys got any questions, just give me a shout, drop a comment, and I'll come back and answer it. If you want me to do any videos on something specific, then let me know, and I'll try and cover it off. Hopefully I can build the channel to make it a bit more interesting. I do know my voice is boring, but there's not a lot I can do about that. I am trying to make it more interesting. I have got other stuff I'll cover off in future videos, so I've got like mulleting, estuary stuff, all sorts really. So I'll carry on trying to plug some videos together for you guys, and if you like them, drop a subscribe, give me a thumbs up. Until next time. So in terms of carrying your rods, all I do is get the tripod, lie it down flat, so I'll do that on the beach or on rocks, whatever. Plop your rods in the rod bag on top. Then I'll just chuck a little rampage over the top. They always do this on the beach, flop around, makes it really hard. Get a pair of bungees. Literally 2 bungees, all you need, a couple of quid on eBay. And if you're really bothered about the weight of it, you can take the rod bags off, they're deceptively heavy, and that's it. Job done. It's 3 rods and a tripod all together, one small package. You can carry it one-handed. Don't flop around on the beach. What you see sometimes is the guys of rod holders, they're not quite long enough for the rods, so the rods will flop out the top, or they'll be top heavy, and they'll just watch them battle sometimes on the beaches. Strap them together like that, doesn't damage the rods, doesn't damage the tripod, weighs absolutely nothing.